Hi, welcome back. Sarah here. Today we are going to blindly rank 10 decks from these piles over here. I believe it was Sylvia of Fairlight Tarot who started this, and then I saw Quinn of Lucid Moons do this. It looked like fun and a bit of chaos. So from what I understand, they had their partner just pick out 10 random decks, and they just blindly pulled out the decks from the box or from the cart, whatever, and then just showed them off and ranked them 1 through 10 without knowing what the rest of the decks were going to be. It looks like fun, looks pretty casual. I literally have a TV tray that I'm going to use as a table. Let me tell you, video creation is hard. I keep telling myself that I want to have a perfect setup. It's just too high of a standard for me to keep consistent, and at the end of the day, video making should just be for fun. It's not meant to be perfect, and I need to keep reminding myself that the fun of videos is literally just in making videos, not about having everything look consistent or look perfect. And so yeah, we are gonna pick 10 random decks from these piles here, and I will rank them 1 through 10. All right, let's get to it. All right, before getting to decks, I want to share that this is a new cloth I'm breaking in. This is from the Tales of 11 Kickstarter that just got fulfilled this year, just got shipped out to backers and pre-orders this year. And it's just such a beautiful, beautiful book and beautiful oracle deck that came with this. The number 11 here is a reference to the 11 Southeast Asian countries. So the Tales of 11 and the corresponding oracle deck are basically based around different stories and myths from the 11 Southeast Asian countries. And there we go, Vietnam represent. Hey yo! All right, so getting into the decks. So this is the Notion database that I've set up to keep track of all the decks that I have. And of course, if you don't want to hear some of the technical stuff, you can just skip ahead a couple minutes, no sweat. This random picker thing, I found a tutorial for it online on how to do shuffling entries on Notion. So I've set it to this gallery view, and every entry here, I've manually assigned it a random date and time. And then I've given it this formula here where it does something related to this date and time and the current time that it is. Every minute, basically this thing will be shuffled according to the random number that's been generated for each of these things. And I know that you could just do something a lot simpler where you just assign each deck in your collection, a number from 1 through whatever, put it in an Excel sheet and just call it a day and use a random number generator to generate whatever random deck you want. I don't know, I just use Notion. This is my way of doing it. So first deck to pick off the shelf and blindly rank, we've got, all right, the Lillifer Tarot. All right, this is a deck that I have not used very much since getting it 1 or 2 years ago. I have read with it enough to know that I do generally enjoy it. What stops me from using this deck was thinking that I want to have a whole initiation process with this, which is honestly a trap that I fall into with a lot of my decks. I do have this idea that for a lot of decks, I need to do a whole deck interview. I need to have a whole ritualized process in getting to get started with the deck. But that's a whole barrier. It stops me from just using the decks, it just sets super high expectations in my mind and it makes me not actually use them. In the past week, I decided to just throw down some cards and yeah, I enjoyed it, just breaking it in, doing the first readings. The more that I look at this, the more this is creeping up towards the top, but I know that there are other decks in my collection that I love more. All right, so Lillifer Tarot, we're gonna put this at Lillifer number 5, top 5 for sure. All right. Moving along, so we're gonna pick the Modern Love Tarot. I recently brought this to a tarot meetup, literally just this past weekend, and some people really, really enjoyed it. They really loved how thick the box was, also how thick the book is. I think this is a great selling point for this deck. There's just so much information and so much different ways of seeing the cards in this book. This was definitely one of my more colorful decks that I really, really enjoy. And I use this as a monthly card study / a monthly reading kind of deck. It's funny because I did once say 2 years ago or 1 year ago that I don't really want to buy decks that have modern scenarios in them, but this one feels different. It feels like it's open-ended enough for me to read the cards as is and as analogies and metaphors, but also the scenes on the cards are mostly clear enough that I can understand the themes of the card. I say mostly though because there are some cards like this that do kind of annoy me. This reminds me of I don't know, deviant art and or like the fan fiction or like the self-inserts or the OCs I would write about when I was like a teen. Dark, edgy girl kind of vibe. This is another lesser favorite card. But whatever. Every deck's gonna have like at least a card or two that I'm not a fan of. Overall, I really do enjoy reading with this, and I really like bringing it out for newbies or friends to look at as well. It just is very expressive. It's very easy to read. The colors are very palatable. Yeah, so where would I rank this in the 10? Let's see. Do I like it more or less than Lilifer is the question. A little bit less than Lilifer. If I had to choose one to keep based on these two, I would choose Lilifer. I guess it's just Lilifer just feels more open-ended and a little bit more abstract, whereas I'm kind of worried I might get tired of this. I don't know. Maybe I don't need to explain too much. We will see with the future decks, right? With the next decks. Moving on to the next pick, the Tarot of Architectural Objects. This is definitely one of the decks that I like to have more just for the sake of having, rather than for reading with too often. I love that this is a photographic deck and that it's just curated. I think there's a lot of magic and a lot of work that goes into curating photos and curating art for decks. But I think that because it's curated art, it can also kind of be a downfall. It can mean there's a limited selection of photos and cards to assign the photos to. Sometimes the guidebook isn't able to source where the photo came from, and or the guidebook, there's not really a guidebook for this deck either. Sometimes it can be a little bit challenging to try to understand or make meaning of it when, again, like there's not really a source to the image and or not really a reasoning from the creator on why this photo was created or why this object was created. But nonetheless, it not having a guidebook just challenges me to make my own meaning and make my own associations with this deck instead of getting too bogged down on what like the source or the history or the credit of these photos are. I find that the doors suit, the wand suit, can be the most challenging in this deck. This is the King of Wands. We see this like this door. I don't really know what meaning to make of it, but it's still a cool deck nonetheless. So let's check the rankings. Okay, I will put this at 9, comfortably at 9. So we'll see if that bites me in the butt later. I have confidence that it won't. All right, so that's a Tarot of Architectural Objects. All right, scrolling through, the next deck we'll look at is the Line Strider Tarot. Okay, this one is reminiscent of the Lilifer Tarot in that both of them do have like a lot of white space in their cards. Okay, the Knights are here because I was just talking to my friend, to Katie, like some time ago about how the Knights in this deck are very interesting because 2 of them are based inside circles, whereas the other 2 are not. I was initially like feeling kind of annoyed or miffed at the seemingly lack of consistency, but what I came to understand about this Knight of Swords is that sometimes the Knight of Swords can be so laser focused that maybe they're only focused on what's right in front of them. They're not focused on like the big picture. They're only just seeing what's right in front of them and just focusing on like immediate thing right now. So this actually is a lot cleverer than I initially gave it credit for. Line Strider Tarot, I haven't used this as often as I would like, which unfortunately is the case for like a lot of my decks. But the fact is I just don't do tarot as much as I like generally would like to do, and that's okay. I really also love the aesthetic of this deck though, which is why it has stayed so long in my collection despite me not reading with it that often. I think that the choice of these bold colors compared with a lot of like gray to balance it out, I think it's a really cool contrast, very cool balance here. The overall vibe, the feel of this deck, it feels very serious and very like cutthroat, like literally an example here, with all these needles, all this blood. That's probably a reason why I don't use it as much as I would like to, because I just don't really gravitate towards like kind of scary or serious or harsh images like this. I would definitely rank this above Architectural Objects. So yeah, Line Strider number 8. All right, that's the ranking so far. All right, next deck here, scrolling on through. Let's pick the, okay, the Inner Dimensions Tarot. Okay, this one is definitely going at number 10. I sigh because Ugh, I don't want to feel this way, but I do right now. Okay, so this deck is from Make Playing Cards and is also meant to be like a genderless deck. So you can see that the Master of Fire or the King of Wands literally just has like a triangle instead of like any face here. This is a really, really cool deck aesthetically. It's also quite minimalist, and I just haven't felt called to work with this yet. Even though it is, of course, completely valid to have decks and not work with them because you can do whatever you want. It's your item, it's your collection. Like, I do want to use all of my decks, and there's a lot of other decks that I'm working through right now. There's like a whole backlog of decks that I'm working through and I'm studying that I just kind of feel more connected to or more drawn to right now. So I would unfortunately rank this as like out of 10 though, but it's really cool. It's really cool. I hope maybe end of this year or maybe start of next year, I can say that I am finally starting to work with this deck. But as of this point, that's just not the case. So Interdimension, yeah, whatever. All right, so there we go, Interdimension Tarot. All right, scrolling on through again. Let's do the Creatures Tarot. Ooh, this is definitely higher on the ranking list. So honestly, adorable little deck. This is definitely one of my favorite decks. I felt such a connection when I saw this online, and even when I started reading with it, I felt such a connection with it as well. The creatures here are just so adorable. I love that some of them have horns because I think that a lot of the time horns can be associated with like the devil and with negativity, and I just don't think that should be the case all the time. I just find these creatures so comforting, and the color palette, the medium, the digital art here is just so comforting. So this is definitely like a top 10 decks. I think in this ranking for sure though, this goes in the top 5 for sure. I just find it so comforting to read with and so soothing to look at. Let's do creatures at number 3. I would say number 3 because it's in the top like 30% of my collection really. Maybe that's how this ranking goes, right? Like Lillifer's in the top 50%, Modern Love is in the top 60%. Is this how it should work? Next deck we are ranking is Lillifer again. Nope. Let's do this one. Everyday Enchantment Tarot. All right, this is definitely ranked like number 10 based on size alone because the size is freaking thick. Not thick, it's large, but it'd be like that sometimes. This is very similar to the Modern Love Tarot in my book. This one feels like another modern themed deck, but I find this one less appealing to look at than the Modern Love Tarot. There's a lot of things going on in each card. They have like neon blue outlines and things in the cards too, which make it stand out in a different way. The art style is different, not worse, just different. Because of this art style, it's not as appealing to me, but I actually have started like reading with this like in the past, I don't know, month or so. I've only done like 1 or 2 readings with it so far. I was reading about like a possible business question because the business would definitely affect like my entire life as well, not just my business or my finances. So I found this deck pretty interesting to look at in that way. I like the theme of this deck being about everyday enchantments. I noticed that in every card they have this little fairy looking creature kind of doing something else in each card. There's a fairy looking creature again here, dancing for victory. So it's a pretty cool like Easter egg, you know, to look for this fairy creature in each card. Yeah, but definitely because of it's visually a bit overwhelming and not as appealing to me as a Modern Love Tarot, I would rank it lower. So Modern Love Tarot, Everyday Enchantment. Yeah, I'm happy with how this ranking is going. It's not too far off from how I would rank them normally. So the next deck here we're looking at, let's see, the Age of Aquarius Tarot. So the Age of Aquarius, this is definitely not a deck that I expect to be in my aesthetic. I never would have expected I would have liked this deck. I usually prefer like more grounded decks, but I think that this deck fills that void, that niche of like, I want something dreamy to imagine and to get lost in. This gives me similar vibes to the Danielle Noel and the Rebecca Campbell decks. I've never been actually drawn to those decks. Maybe the fact that this is like all watery themed. makes it appeal more to me. I'm not really sure. But whatever the case, like, this is a deck that I enjoy having. I like to pull it out and just gaze at it, almost like it's a storybook. But I haven't done too much reading with it. It can feel a little bit new agey / woo for me. Like, this being the Judgment card, my guess is that this is reminiscent of like an angel, and I really just don't believe in angels or any religious iconography like this. But you know, I can see and appreciate like the intent, the theme of this card. Now the real question is, would I rank this in my top 5 if I had a choice? No. I'll put this right here, I guess. If I had a choice, Age of Aquarius would probably be like maybe around here between Line Strider and Architectural Objects. All right, just a couple more decks. I know that Quinn left the number 1 ranking for last, and now I'm like kind of curious to see what the last 2 decks will be. So we've got the Revelations Tarot. I made this bag for it based on the colors here. Matches kind of well, right? Okay, so Revelations Tarot is another newer deck in my collection. Just got this last year. I've done 1 reading with this. Similar to the Line Strider Tarot, both of these, visually, they just look very harsh. I know that I once thought that the faces were creepy, but now I don't feel that way. I feel it's just a different art style that I can appreciate. It's really cool to me how the cards are reversible. Like the Queen of Cups here and the Queen of Cups reversed. We've got all these tentacles here versus like the waves and these not tentacles behind them. Yeah, I don't know. I just think it's really, really cool visually. Haven't read with it. I think that this deserves a lot of attention. Basically, just the fact that it's reversible and it has something different on each side is just really, really cool to me. But I haven't read with this as often as I would like, which is, again, the case with a lot of my decks, but it be what it be. I really, really like this deck visually, though. It is so intriguing. That's the case with a lot of my decks. I don't read with them super often, but I really do enjoy looking at them just whenever I want to. Oh my god, this is unfortunate though, because right now I'm going to put it at number 2. I don't love it enough to make it number 1. If I had a choice, Revelations Tarot would be probably like next to Line Strider in this way. Oh well. Now that brings us to our last deck, our last picker here. Are you kidding me? I can't believe out of all the decks in my collection, this one had to pop up. The deck itself is not the disappointment. The thing is, I can't fully say from experience if it's amazing because this deck has been on loan to my friend for like a good many months, and she only just returned it like this past weekend at our recent meetup. So since buying this last year, I have not had much chance to work with it yet. So I am forced to put this at number 1. I bought this last year during my bachelorette weekend in Portland, Oregon. My bridesmaids planned a surprise weekend for me and planned a lot of great activities. I had a really wonderful time, and I bought this deck from a local metaphysical shop because I thought it was really cool. I have not seen this deck much at all on social media, on TarotTube, so it felt pretty cool to just have a deck that I could get to know for myself and not be swayed by from other opinions of other people. I also wondered if this could be like a good replacement or alternative to the Modern Witch Tarot. The Modern Witch Tarot also depicts a lot of like young-ish ladies. It's basically a Rider-Waite-Smith clone, but it depicts like young ladies of all ethnicities instead of like men. And for context about this deck, at least the majors, they depict various goddesses. So this Fool is actually Persephone. The death card here is Matangi, the Indian goddess of arts, music, poetry, healing, and births. But when it gets to the minors, they don't have like specific goddesses listed. So that was definitely like the plot twist of the book, really. But I think the court cards actually do depict goddesses again. Like it specifies here that the Page of Cups is Yamaya, the Yoruba goddess of water. And then the Knight and Queen and the Crone are Yamaya again, like through the various stages of mastery. But the minors themselves, besides the court cards, don't specify certain goddesses or certain deities. Yeah, here are the Swords court cards. We have Artemis. But yeah, so that is the Modern Goddess Tarot. And again, it's just very unfortunate that this is
unfortunately in the #1 spot because I've literally not worked with this since getting it last year. But the past does not mean the future. Now that this is back in my hand, now that my friend returned it to me, probably after turning off this video, I can just go like do readings with this and enjoy playing around with this deck. So yeah, not all is lost. It is unfortunately in the #1 ranking for now, but maybe it'll have a chance to be #1 in the future after I work with it some more, right? All right, in conclusion, here are the rankings. Modern Goddess Tarot at #1 through Inner Dimensions at #10. I feel like the last like 3 or 4 here are pretty accurate, but the first 5 to 6, it's like, what happened here?
Who would have guessed that stacking 10 things is not easy? So this is the 10 decks that I've ranked. I'll link the other videos from Sylvia of Fairlight Tarot and Queen of Lucid Moons in the description, so check them out if you have time and if you have interest as well. Besides that, that is all I got for today. Thanks for watching. Bye!